I talk a lot about microplastics, and microplastics aren't one of those things. We used to think they're just in the ocean, right? Guess what? Now they're inside of us. These invisible plastic particles have made their way into our food, into our water, into our air, and now they're being linked to serious health issues. A new global study just came out, and it said that common household plastics may be responsible for thousands of heart disease deaths globally every year. So it's not just an environmental issue anymore. This is a personal health crisis. And I'm going to link that study. I'm going to link everything that I've researched for this video below in case you want to do some additional research. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share 10 things that I'm doing to protect myself from microplastics. These are very simple things. You're going to be shocked by how simple some of these are, but they're all research backed. And while we can't avoid microplastics entirely, with the things that I'm going to share today, we can reduce our exposure by as much as 95%. I've worked in the environmental and human health space for more than 2 decades as a professional, and then here on YouTube, I've been incorporating it into my content. I'm so happy you guys are enjoying this type of content because I believe that if I'm on a mission to simplify, clean, declutter, tidy my home up, it's everything. It's not just the random dishes and toys that I've got that I need to declutter. It's also the toxins so that I can set myself up for the healthiest life that I can live. I truly believe that very small changes can make such a big impact, and I'm living proof of that. And I'll share more about this, but some of the things I'm going to share, when you start doing them, you're going to see for yourself. So the first thing right out of the gate, this is so crazy. But did you know that a single piece of chewing gum will release thousands of particles of plastic while you're chewing it? And it's not just synthetic gum. You may be thinking that it's just the plastic gum. I mean, who knew gum was made of plastic? But it's not just that gum. It's also the gum that they are selling as from natural sources. They did a study in March 2025, so just a couple of months ago. It was very eye-opening for me. Now, I don't chew gum anymore, and I'm very happy that I don't. But if you are chewing gum, I urge you to read this study. And what I will say, if you are a gum fanatic, I would say if you're going to chew gum, just try to limit it to 1 piece a day. Some people will take a piece and then they'll refresh it every hour and then they've had 10 pieces of gum that day. That is releasing way more microplastics because each piece contains a certain amount. So try to limit your gum chewing and honestly try to stop chewing gum if you still are. Okay, this next one is big. I wanted to start with the gum one because I thought that was surprising. But this one, if you do this, it's going to make a huge impact. Maybe the biggest impact on this list, but what you're going to do is cut down on plastic as much as you can when it comes to food. So some things I'm trying to do, for example, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. So when I go grocery shopping, I will choose pasta sauce in the glass jar instead of in the plastic jar because they sell them both ways, right? I will choose veggies that are just not in a bag. Apples not in a bag, carrots not in a bag, peppers not in a bag because they sell both versions. I also do not use plastic food storage containers. I've talked a ton about that, so I'm not going to go on and on about it. But I think that is a huge thing that you should be doing. You can get yourself some glass containers. If those are too heavy, go for stainless steel. Anything but plastic is going to be instantly better from you. The other thing, if you are still using a plastic cutting board, again, I've talked about this before, super terrible. You're getting microplastics into everything that you're eating. Just switch to wood. Also, I'm avoiding plastics. I went down a whole rabbit hole here, but I'm avoiding plastics number 3, 6, and 7. Now let me tell you what these are. So number 3 is PVC. So it is in things like your shower curtain, the shower curtains that sometimes people have in their bathrooms. Terrible plastic. It's off-gassing. It's awful stuff. This plastic almost always contains additives like phthalates and lead. And phthalates, of course, are an endocrine disruptor. Okay, so let's talk about number 6, and that's polystyrene. Sometimes people mistakenly just refer to all polystyrene as styrofoam, but it's the foam stuff. You will see this in takeout boxes, coffee cups, meat trays. This actually leaches a chemical called styrene, and this is linked to cancer. And it also very easily breaks apart into microplastics. So just imagine you've got a foam leftover container, you're heating your food in it into the microwave. It's just terrible. Don't ever do that. Okay, and then number 7, this is kind of like a catch-all category, and it really covers a mix of plastics, but these are used in reusable water bottles, baby bottles, and some food containers. Some of these plastics contain BPA. This is, again, an endocrine disruptor. This chemical messes with your hormones. This plastic is also nearly impossible to recycle. So 3, 6, and 7, I'm staying away from that plastic. Moving on to the next, we kind of just talked about this, but you really want to avoid heating any food in plastic containers. So I'm talking about a leftover container, but I'm also talking about putting saran wrap on your food. That saran wrap will leach so much plastic into your food. This is really bad. Honestly, even if something says microwave safe, one of you guys said it best. Microwave safe simply means that the container or the packaging won't melt. Microwave safe does not mean safe for you. In fact, just 3 minutes in the microwave actually leaches more than 4 million microplastic and nanoplastic particles into your food. 4 million in 3 minutes. These tiny particles, they enter your body. I mentioned that they're linked to hormone disruption, but they're also linked to inflammation and damage on a cellular level. And I know that a lot of you are thinking, and I've seen this in the comments, you're saying, oh, our bodies can filter these out. So just think about this. A lot of this plastic is so small that it is entering into our organs, okay? It is crossing our blood-brain barrier. It's getting into our brain. It is infiltrating, and these particles are so tiny that they're getting stuck and they're staying there. And yes, they do eventually get filtered out, but then guess what? We're having more plastic. We're continually being exposed to this plastic, and our bodies never get a break. So these tips that I'm sharing are going to give your body the break that it needs. If you're looking for content that helps you simplify your home and your life, you are in the right place. Click the button below, it's free. Okay, this next way that I'm protecting myself, and you're going to think it's not linked, but it's totally linked. Make sure that you use products that are labeled fragrance free. And I'm not just talking about unscented, because that's a little bit of a marketing trick. They will call something unscented, yet it still has fragrance in it. Their product, they've put some fragrance chemicals in there because something smells off and they want to give it that unscented smell. Fragrance is where a lot of these microplastics hide, and they bundle them under fragrance because it's considered proprietary information. It's a trade secret. I cannot tell you, in doing research for this video and other videos, I often will reach out to manufacturers. I will send them an email and I will ask them for their ingredients because I really want to know what I'm buying, what I'm using in my home. The amount of times that they tell me proprietary information. I also never use scented candles and air fresheners. Okay, I've talked a bit about ultra processed foods, and we know that these are unhealthy in general, right? But you may be surprised to learn that ultra-processed foods are actually a big source of microplastics. Number one, a lot of these foods come wrapped in plastic, right, when you're shopping at the grocery store. But number two, because these foods are so processed, they've gone through a lot of different manufacturing processes by the time they get to you. Just think about how they've made the sugar that goes into it. They've turned it into some sort of high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup. I could think that just one single Oreo has come into contact with 200 machines, right? Like, who knows? But in that manufacturing process, that is where the microplastic exposure happens. So what I'm actually trying to do now when I go to the grocery store is I'm trying to stay out of those middle aisles where all the snacks are, where all the processed food is, and I really just try to shop the perimeter like they tell you, but I specifically don't even venture into that area. Now, it's not always easy because sometimes I need things like flour or sugar, but another thing I'm doing is I'm trying to make as much from scratch as I can. I'm making salad dressings at home, breads and desserts, all of those things. I'm trying to just at least control what I put in them and make sure I'm not only not getting that microplastic exposure, I'm also not getting all the unhealthy things that come with that. The next one I'm doing is I'm limiting my use of canned goods. And you may be surprised, and I think I did a video on this where I mentioned it before and a lot of people were surprised, but those tin cans are actually lined with plastic. They put this plastic lining so that the can itself doesn't break down. And a lot of the times, that plastic lining still has BPA in it. You'll see on a lot of cans now, they'll say BPA free. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stick to fresh or frozen or dried things like dried beans, dried lentils. That's a lot better than getting things in cans. This next one is a very simple way to avoid so many microplastics, and it is simply to avoid drinking bottled water. The bottled water that they sell in the plastic bottles specifically. The moment you open one of those plastic water bottles, I saw this in a study and I was shocked, 50,000 microplastics shed and drop into your water. I had no idea. There was a 2019 study, and I will put that up. This was published in Environmental Science and Technology. They estimated that people who drink only bottled water may be ingesting up to 90,000 microplastic particles per year, compared to just 4,000 particles if you drink tap water instead. So that is over 20 times the exposure. I can link a whole video after this one about water if you're interested in learning more. This next one, I talk a lot about this on this channel, and it's related to cleaning. So, simple solution here. One thing that you can do to limit your exposure to microplastics, one of the biggest sources of microplastic exposure indoors is household dust. Studies have found that microplastics often settle in dust. They settle on surfaces, they settle on couches, furniture, floors. But the good news is you can vacuum regularly with a HEPA filter and remove so much of it from your home. You can also use a wet mop. You can also mop your floor. This will drastically reduce your microplastic exposure. If you have kids, I'm going to say this is even more important because my kids in particular, they're often crawling on the floor and they're touching things. They're putting their hands in their mouth from time to time, and that is where a lot of exposure is happening. But microplastics don't just settle in dust, they also float in the air. Aren't we lucky? So if you have poor ventilation, that can trap those particles. Research shows that by improving your airflow in your home or in your workplace, helps remove those airborne volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs, and that's what we're breathing in. That's the exposure that we're getting. But you can do 3 things, and these are very simple things. You'll be so surprised at how simple they are. Number 1, open your window for 10 to 15 minutes a day. That will get some fresh air in, get the bad air out, and get those microplastic particles out. The second thing, use exhaust fans in your kitchen and in your bathroom. That's very important. If you have an HVAC system, an upgrade to a high efficiency MERV 13 filter, that's even better. And then consider adding an air purifier with a HEPA filter. I can link the one that I have. That's done a lot of good for my son's allergies, which is why we got it in the first place, but it's also reducing those particles in the air. This next one is pretty surprising in how simple it is, but also very surprising in how much it reduces and eliminates microplastic exposure, and it is simply to wash your hands frequently. And it's not just for germs. They have found that regular hand washing reduces your harmful exposure to chemicals that have microplastics in them, like flame retardants and all the other things that are polluting our home. And what happens is that I mentioned kids putting their hands in their mouth, but adults do it too, or we're eating and we just are getting that exposure from hand to mouth, or it's even being absorbed into our skin. Studies have found that kids who wash their hands frequently have significantly lower level of these chemicals in their bodies, and I would imagine this would be the same for adults. So listen, we can't limit every exposure that we might have, but we can take small steps and really take control of what happens in our home. And I think that's where it's gonna make the most impact and where it's gonna count the most. Okay guys, I hope these 10 things that I'm doing to reduce my microplastics exposure has helped. I'm telling you, I truly feel a big difference now that I've been doing this. I've been doing this for some time now. Try them, try 1, try 5, try all of them if you can, and see how you feel. If you want to learn more, I mentioned that water video. I'm going to link the water video up here. Then I'm going to link my whole non-toxic clean living playlist that I've been working on for you. So click on one of these videos and hopefully I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.